Let's make some Tibetan Momos in the Blue Mountains, Ontario, Canada. Welcome back to the Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show, where we make plant-based cooking easy. I'm Jill, and today, boy, do I have a treat for you. We are going to make Tibetan Momos. I had never heard of these before, but while we were in Toronto on our stay there, we visited this wonderful little restaurant. It was a Tibetan restaurant that served all different types of momos, and they had one that was vegan. So we went there quite a few times because they were so amazingly delicious, very simple, just filling little pockets of amazingness. So I'm going to share those with you today. And we are going to start on the sauce that they are going to be steeping in. But before we do that, all of our pantry ingredients today are from our partner Essential Organics, who carry over 600 organic products. And if you want to check them out, you can use the code PLANTBASEDEASY at checkout for 10% off your order. So for this sauce, typically the Tibetan dipping sauce is very, very, very spicy. We're going to make it kind of mild today, and you can accustom it to your level of spiciness. So you can add more chili peppers or chili powder or red pepper chili flakes if you choose. So we're going to start with our tomatoes. You can use, this is 2 Roma tomatoes that I just chopped up, or you can use 1 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes. That will work too. 1 small red onion chopped, or about ½ cup. Then I've got 3 cloves of garlic, and then I've got 1 red chili, because these are very, very spicy, and ½ teaspoon of turmeric. And I have 1 tablespoon of a low sodium soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and 1/4 cup of toasted sesame seeds. And that's going to give it just a little bit of creaminess. You could do it without that too if you don't want a creamier sauce, if you just want that really fiery red sauce. But I like this, it kind of tones it down just a little bit and it gives it some richness. All right, and then ½ cup of a low sodium vegetable broth. We're going to just blend this up until it's really pulverized and you really don't see any more chunks left. There we go. And we're going to put this in our pan because we're going to simmer it for a bit because it needs to be really nice and hot, because this is kind of a comforting dish. And once you see those little pillowy dough pockets in the sauce, you're just going to fall in love. And we're going to put some cracked pepper in there, probably about ½ teaspoon or so. Okay. So I'm going to put this back on my burner and simmer it on low while we're doing some of our other things for prep. And just check on it and stir it every once in a while. Give it a little taste. See if it's the spice level that you can tolerate. Okay, for the next part, we are going to make the dough. So essentially these are little steamed buns. So I've got 2 cups of whole wheat flour here, and then about ½ cup of water, but we're just going to incorporate the water slowly. You might not need the whole ½ cup, or you might need a little bit more. It just depends on your flour, and all flours are not created equal, so you just kind of have to gauge it as you go, and I'll show you the consistency that we're looking for. So I'm just going to pour a little bit in at a time and just kind of massage it in as we go. You don't want to add it all at one time because you may end up with just a gloppy mess, and it's kind of hard to pull it back from that point. It's really just easier to add a little bit as you go. And usually these are made with just regular white flour, but we're trying to make them a bit healthier. So we're using a whole grain kind of flour. Okay, and now I'm just going to use my hands. It's a little bit easier to incorporate it at this point with your hands. And this isn't like a typical bread dough. A bread dough you would probably add a little bit more liquid. It'll be a little bit softer of a dough. But because these are a very hearty little dumpling, that dough needs to be really strong so that you don't end up with little tears, because you want them to be sealed so that they steam properly. So it has to be really nice and strong. Okay, that's feeling about right. So I'm going to put this, we're just going to put this out on our countertop here. Put the rest, scrape that dough or that flour out of that bowl and just put it onto your countertop. Because you need to knead this for a little bit, because we're trying to incorporate the gluten in it. That's what's going to help it be really nice and strong and to not get little holes in it. So you probably need to knead it for between 3 and 5 minutes. And because it is a whole grain flour, it requires a little bit more kneading than just your regular white bread dough. Okay. So just work with it. Okay. Now we've got our dough done here. So we're just going to stick it back in our pan and just cover it with saran wrap or just like a light towel. We don't want it to dry out. And you're going to have to let that sit for about a half an hour, which is great because that gives you time to prep the filling ingredients. So that's what we're doing next. So before we start with our filling, we're going to check in on our sprouts. This is our sprouting kit from the Sprouting Company. They sent it to us. So we've been using this while we're traveling, which is so great because it helps us stay healthy and eat the most healthy, nutrient-dense food on the planet while we're traveling. It's so handy. So these happen to be broccoli sprouts, which are my personal favorite because they're really quick to sprout and they're really light. I find they go really well with just about any dish. I have it in my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I put a bunch on my toast in the morning over, I put some peanut butter and then a big pile of sprouts on top and I just mash it into that peanut butter so it stays put. And then our lunches, I usually have a salad and we put a healthy bunch of these, and then the protein mix also because it's a little bit more meaty and crunchy on there. And then at night, whatever we're eating, we just try to sprinkle some sprouts on top of that. So we're getting sprouts 3 times a day. And if you want to get a kit like this, you can go to the description and we'll have a 10% off discount if you use the code PLANTBASEDEASY at checkout. So for the filling, this is typically what would go into a vegetarian momo. It's a very traditional thing, except for our broccoli sprouts, which we're going to add in there. That is completely optional. So you want to get I've got 2 cups of vegetable broth and 1 cup of water boiling on your pot here, ready to go. So I've got 2.5 cups of shredded cabbage, and yes, you want to shred it because it really just adds to the texture. You want them to be really nice and soft. If it's too chunky, then you're kind of getting the chunks in there and it's not quite as pleasant. 1 carrot, the same, grated really fine. I've got 1/2 cup of chopped spring onion or scallions, 2 cloves of garlic minced, 2 teaspoons of very, very finely grated ginger, 1/3 cup of some red onion, the same thing, grated just like this, and then I have 1/4 cup of our broccoli sprouts, which I'm going to throw in there too. So instead of cooking this or frying this in oil, we're going to blanch it in this liquid, and the vegetable broth is going to give it some more flavor, just another layer of flavor in there. So we're just going to stick it all in there, except for the sprouts. I'm not going to put those in there because I don't want to kill the nutrients in our sprouts here. Okay, and I'm going to blanch that for just a few minutes. You want to keep it on boiling, just so we can cook some of the rawness out of it and have some of that water come out of the cabbage. So we're just going to wait on that.
There's no denying the plant-based diet is a nutrient powerhouse, but did you know there are a handful of hard-to-get nutrients even well-crafted diets are often lacking? The latest research suggests that complementing your diet with a few specific vitamins, minerals, and omega-3s will help boost your energy and keep you thriving for the long term. That's why my daily health routine includes Complement Essential. Complement Essential contains the 8 critical nutrients lacking from most plant-based diets in dosages optimized specifically for us. As a special discount for our viewers, just use code PLANTBASEDEASY at checkout to save 15% off of your order.
Okay, so our vegetables are done blanching, and I poured them through the strainer here to drain the liquid out. And then I'm just going to plop this into my bowl here. And you can always save that broth. You can use that, put it back in a jar and keep it in the fridge for your next soup or something like that, or even freeze it. All right, so we're going to have to get this cooled down before we start making the dumplings. But we're going to add some things first. I've got 2 tablespoons of miso paste. This is a dark soy miso paste. 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Some cracked pepper. And that's the amount of pepper is really to your liking, but I kind of like a lot. And then our broccoli sprouts, but that's completely optional. You don't have to add those if you don't want, or if you don't have them. Then we're just gonna mix this up. Make sure you get that miso really well incorporated in there. Okay, now I'm gonna pop this in the fridge, and then I'm gonna get out our dough and we'll start rolling our momos. But we don't want to roll them out till we're quite ready, till this is completely cooled, because we're going to need it on hand while we're making our momos. All right, let's roll some momos. All right, so our dough has set for at least a half an hour. Oops, we're going to have to keep that. Now, this makes about between 12 and 14. So we're going to try to get 14 out of this, which shouldn't be that hard. But you want to roll your dough in kind of a tube or a snake so that we can cut pretty even sized pieces. And you're going to need something to roll. So to roll the round momos like we're making, you need a small little rolling pin. But if you want to make these, by all means, you can make these just like steamed dumplings, and you can just do the little crescent shape where you would just roll out the whole thing, cut out circles, and then you press them into the crescent shape. But this is the traditional round little purse momo. All right, so we'd go in half. I gotta get 7 out of here, so. That's right, 7? Okay. All right, and we're going to stick these under our towel here so that they don't dry out. And we're just going to do one at a time. And you want to have your piece of parchment paper that is going to sit on your steamer. So if you have a steamer basket or a rack, I like to use the parchment paper just so that they don't stick. Because if they stick and you try to pull it off with your tongs, it might tear a hole in them, which is, you don't want that. So we're just going to set that to the side so that when we make each momo, we stick it onto the parchment so that we can transfer that to our steamer basket. All right, so you're going to take each roll. And you don't need to flour your surface. It's actually better if you don't, because you kind of need a little bit of stickiness to help with the process, as you'll see. So you want to press it out just a little with your hands first. And then this process, like for pie dough, you would normally go from the inside out, right? But for a momo, because we want this edge to be really thin because there's a lot of dough that comes up around to the top. If you roll it out from the middle out, then it's an even amount of dough all the way around. And then when you gather that top in, you're just gonna have a big wad of dough on the top. So this makes it much more delicate. So what you wanna do is you're rolling into it, which at first it seems really like that's not right. And it might take you a little while to kind of get that movement down. So you're kind of holding the middle of your dough and you're pushing in, but you're kind of pulling just gently with the hand that is holding the wad of dough. And you just kind of keep turning it, rolling it into it so that the edge stays really nice and thin. And it's one of those things, you know, you just take, it takes a little practice. This definitely isn't one that you should try if you're going to have guests. Try this for yourself first so you can get used to this and get this technique down. If you're going to have guests or you're going to serve this for guests, I would go with the crescent shape. Much easier, much more forgiving. But this one took me a while to get. All right, and then I stretch it just a little bit. And for the momo also, because this is such a hearty filling, the dough should be just a little bit thicker in the center so that it's strong enough to hold that amount of filling. All right, so this is the secret part here. Also, another part, you might just take a couple, try it out, you know, just get your technique down. You're gonna put a pretty decent glob of your filling in the middle. You know, you're just gonna have to kind of gauge it as you go to make sure we have enough for 14 of these. All right, so you're gonna make one pinch first in the front, right here, and you're gonna hold your thumb in that same place. You're not gonna move your thumb. It's gonna kind of drag along as we go. You're gonna take your pointer finger and your other finger, and you're gonna kind of gather a little bit of dough as you go, as you twist it, and you use your thumb to keep the filling in as you're going around. And you just keep gathering that top in with your finger as you're pushing the filling down with your thumb till you get to the end. And then you can just twist just a little bit while you're pinching. There you go. There's your little dough ball. And I have a wet or just slightly damp cloth over here that I'm going to put it under so those don't dry out while we're going on. All right, and you keep going. It's a very meditative little practice. It's good to just do this and try to stay calm. Just enjoy the process. And if you're enjoying our show and love our recipes and want to help us make plant-based easy, follow the link in the description and become a supporting member today. Okay, I'm going to finish these up and I'll show you the next step for steaming when I'm done. All right, guys, our momos are steamed. So I just used my steamer basket. Use whatever steamer basket you can do. And I usually put the piece of parchment in there, like I said before, just so they don't stick. Steamed them for 10 minutes. And then I have to do it in 2 batches because I don't have a very big steamer. All right, and our sauce is done. It's cooked down a bit. So I'm just gonna put a little sauce on the bottom of my plate here. I'm gonna put a few in there, just nestle it down in the sauce. All right, and then I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit more of hot peppers on there, or red pepper flakes, because I like them spicy. All right, now all that's left is a taste, so I'll meet you at the table for a taste. All right, guys, are you ready to dig in? I sure am. Okay, let's go with the first one here. Get a little bit of that sauce inside. Maybe I'll cut that in a smaller piece. That's a big chunk. Oh, the filling. But really, my favorite part is the sauce. You are gonna love it. Come on back next week for another great recipe.